please. Listen, Ed Warren's never seen a house that he didn't think was haunted. And by the time his wife is done blowing smoke and ringing bells, they've got everybody else believing in ghosts, too.
What exactly are you a doctor of, anyway?
Come on, Warren, try and show a little class.
I'm not going to show class as somebody who's sitting here telling lies about my wife and me.
Be careful who you call a liar.
What are you going to do about it?
Okay. So, that's a pretty standard ghost hunter sort of fantasy, right? You go onto this Vogan website, they talk a little bit of shit and whatever. This event is actually based a bit on real life. This clip was dug up by the Sylph Secret on Reddit for their podcast. Their podcast, I think it's called Fear Enough. I'll put links to it in the description. I don't think they're gonna like the crossover of us and them. I just sort of get that vibe. However, I've been told that this is a pretty great video, and I wanted to show it to you because of your interest in ghost and ghost thingies and shit.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Woo, Sally, Jesse,
When
Raphael.
Carmen and Alan Snedeker moved into their suburban home in Connecticut, they thought it was perfect. Little did they know what evil lurked inside the woodwork. They say their new house, which was once a funeral parlor, was haunted by ghosts. One of the children slept downstairs in the basement, which used to be the morgue. There, a gruesome blood-stained wall remained, along with a chain-powered body lift.
They didn't clean it up before they put their kid in there?
Yeah.
Like, you guys know you can, like, paint over that, right? The landlord comes over and is like, hey, you can't move the body lift, all right? Look, all right, you guys are renting. My next guy might need that. You can't rip it out. It's a whole thing. It's got to stay, all right? I tell you what, you pay a mortgage, you can take it out.
She says she was raped and sodomized by a grotesque demon who jumped on her in bed.
That was just her husband. He thought it would be funny.
He thought it'd be funny.
The Snedekers tried to get help from their neighbors and even the police, but no one seemed to listen. Finally, in a desperate cry for help, they found
What do you say to the police? Oh, ghosts are in my house. Shoot them, please.
You're probably saying to yourself about now, well, this story sounds crazy. But my guest today insists it's true. Meet Al and Carmen Snedeker. They are here with their son, Michael, and their niece, Kelly. You moved into this house in the first place because your son, Stephen, was in the middle of receiving treatments for cancer at a local hospital.
That seems really morbid. That seems like a kind of a fucked up thing to do. To stare your mortality in the face every day when you wake up because you're also going to cancer treatment.
So I saw the upstairs apartment. I didn't realize it was a funeral home. When you went into the basement, there was the morgue and where they prepared the bodies. The hoist went up into our bedroom above us. There was a blood tank to the right of the staircase. And then as you
What did they keep in there?
There was the sink where they
Yeah.
flushed the...
So she makes a point of saying twice, I didn't realize it was a funeral home. And at this point, she doesn't go, oh yeah, this is what clocked me off. Like,
Yeah.
what, she walked into the bedroom and was like, wow, this is some real kinky shit going on in here.
Oh, that's crazy. They got a whole tank of blood? We won't have to buy any for months.
Yeah.
You went on through, that was the north coffin room. That's where my son Stephen slept. That was his bedroom.
You had him in the coffin room. Oh, you can't make it up.
As you go up the stairs, you go directly into the bathroom. Back around, there's a U shape into a beautiful living room with a sunroom. There were over 22 windows. Then there were 2 more bedrooms. Kelly and my daughter and other niece slept in the other one.
Holy shit, dude. They really had to fill time back in the day, didn't they?
Yeah.
22 windows. You counted? Why? I wanted to make sure. My mom grew up in a house with 20 windows. It was never enough. It was so dark.
One thing I'm noticing is there's like a very common principle within, like, I know we're not big fans of like voice analysis and shit like that. Within like detecting a liar, where people will go into weird details to make their story seem more believable, and you bringing up the windows makes me think of that. Because why do you need to talk about your windows in this instant?
Yeah, that's one way. The other way would just be that, like, well, they're nervous, so they, like, rehearsed, and they were like, well, it'll sound more believable if we give as much detail as we can. Like, I think that's reasonable.
I think that's a cop-out, personally, but to their own.
And he said, we have to leave here immediately. The house is evil. It's really evil. Something bad's going to happen if we stay. I told him that houses could not be.
Oh, what? Wait, both of them? I thought only one of them.
Well,
Did they both?
At one point, I thought I was getting my after work tugger, as we agreed to, and I felt something kind of, pop up inside me, and I thought she was just, trying out new things, and I kind of swiveled around in my seat, and I was like, I don't think I like this too much. But then she was like, I looked over, she wasn't there no more. I looked behind me, and Martin Luther King Jr.
You reckon this guy knows the Sasquatch dude? You know, the one who was like, I got a number of a Sasquatch!
This is where it happened, back here in this dry creek bed. That's when I saw the female Sasquatch. She started like jerking the ween. It was all just biological. I didn't have any choice. And the next thing you know, I blew my load. I blew my load in the Sasquatch. She starts blowing me again, and I'm like, could you give me 5 minutes? And then she stands up and does one of these isn't that good? It sucks. It sucks, man. I felt like I couldn't get fucking clean.
Yeah.
She came to our bedroom where I was sleeping, and she said, Aunt Carmen, come quick. It's coming again. It's happening again. I grabbed my Bible from the nightstand, and I'm saying to myself, I've got to find something to put all of these ghost stories to rest. I've had it up to here.
So I was about to ask, why would you grab the Bible if you didn't believe there was a ghost there? Because that's always the kind of thing you do when you believe there is a ghost. But I was like, oh, well, she's probably doing, at that moment, she was thinking, oh, if I take the Bible in, maybe recite the Lord's Prayer, everyone will think it's not happening, and, using psychosomatics. Just thinking if anyone else was thinking that as well.
I'm very surprised with how many, it seems odd to me to not believe in ghosts, but also to be a Christian.
It does when you also consider, the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, if you're a Christian, by definition, you have to believe in an afterlife. You have to believe in something outside of the physical world, outside of flesh and blood. So the notion of a ghost is not a crazy one to get to. Or even if you don't think of ghosts, like demons or angels and shit like that, there's something beyond you. So to believe in one, but to also think, there's no such thing as a ghost. Which I kind of think maybe a lot of the times people say that because they're playing up a character almost. I think without realizing it, a lot of people kind of want to be part of a narrative that they build, so they kind of put themselves in a position that they think if I say there's no ghost, then I'll definitely be shown a ghost, because that's how this works.
So, if you want the answer to that, it would be that Christians do believe in an afterlife. They believe in heaven and hell and purgatory. The idea of purgatory is always a very fluid thing, right? We either believe it's just a plane of nothingness where you just exist, or you're literally, stuck here. The idea of a ghost would imply that everyone that is a ghost is just in purgatory, and the ideal of you exorcise a ghost is to send them on to heaven or potentially hell, I suppose. Because the other one is, it's someone who doesn't want to pass on, so they're worried about the judgment they're going to get. But that implies, again, that, the afterlife is something we have control over, just by going, no, I don't want to pass on, I'm going to live here instead. Rather than God just turns around and goes, okay, you go to heaven, you go to hell. Which, it's muddy after that. I mean, I could go into a whole thing, I'm not gonna, but it feels like I do understand what you're saying. I do agree with you again. It's just one of those things where I think, if you want the real answer, it might be because they believe in heaven and hell as constants. There's no such thing as ghosts, because you're either going to hell or you're going to heaven. You're not going to sit here instead, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's a muddy subject to begin with.
It's okay. Take
Kelly
your time.
came in from a date, and she went into her bedroom, and she tried to lay in bed, and she felt something come up underneath the covers towards her, and it was pulling at her undergarments and touching her in her private areas. She reached over for her rosary, and the cross came off. That's when she got up and ran into the room with me.
That's what you get for buying a shitty cross down at the farmer's market. You know they're not putting work into it. You know it's like a dumb zinc ring. It's gonna dissolve in water or something.
I truly didn't believe her. I thought that the older boy had gotten her all excited about the stories of the funeral home and the ghost he had seen.
I didn't think that's where. Okay, I didn't think that's where she was gonna go. I thought she was
Yeah,
gonna.
I was gonna. Yeah.
I thought he got her all excited. She made herself a molester tulpa again, and he was getting all frisky. But you know, I think she wanted it. I think all of them do. You know, not to be politically incorrect.
I did genuinely think she was just gonna be like, oh yeah, you know, she was just horny, and you know, she was just projecting it like this. That's what I thought it was going to.
I thought she was trying to, you know, seduce me, honestly. A little girl on girl before the main course, you know. I thought it was, you know, but like that's inappropriate because it was a school night.
Al, you say strange things were happening to you and Carmen at night when you were in bed. In order to fully understand, we want you to show us what happened. We have a bed here today that is about the size of the bed, which was in
They have a what? What's happening here?
What did they say? A
So we're
cot?
going to set the scene.
Oh, they brought a
Now
bed
you're
on?
about ready to tuck in for the night when all of a sudden you hear music like this. What happened next?
Well, Sally, the music would wake me up at night. I'd be sound asleep. I would hear the music playing, and I would say to myself, what is that? And I would lie there for 5 or 10 minutes and listen to it.
He thought someone was in the house when all of this was going
They
on.
put this sign up.
I used to get up.
Like how many? I know it's because like, well, you know, sometimes people are tuning in for the first time. How many times can you write underneath someone molested by a ghost before you start to feel a little silly?
Yeah.
Every night, go down the stairs. First couple times, I would just go down and start looking. But each time it
And I normally don't do that, but it was the ghost's birthday, so.
went down, it got to the point where I got so afraid when I was going down there, I started bringing a gun with me. And one night, I woke Carmen up. I said, Carmen, I said, I got to stop doing this. I'm afraid I'm going to shoot one of our children.
He was
Jesus.
really afraid that one of the kids would be standing up in the room when he'd go around the corner, and he would
They didn't need to be in bed for this.
Yeah.
fire.
I suppose at a certain point, what else are you gonna do, right? When you're told to like lie in the bed.
Yeah.
Sure.
And when you were in your bed, he would come and lift the covers and tug at them.
But there was a
and pull at
pulse
them.
and a heartbeat in the bed.
In the bed, and
They could have just had like a raccoon running around the house.
Well, I was just thinking, so a lot of this, first off, could be psychosomatic, right? There's a lot of things when you're asleep. There's a lot of things that can happen as you are entering into your sleep cycles that can bring you to believe that you are either seeing something or hearing something or feeling something. It's a natural response that humans have. It's like when you walk around your house at night, sometimes you think you see a shadow. It's just your eyes are just adjusting to the light, and it's your brain trying to keep you alert.
Legitimately,
It's just-
like half
Yeah.
the time when I come home from work and I'll sit down at my computer, I'll see something out of the corner of my eye, and I'll think it's someone like standing in my door frame or something. It's nothing. I'm just a little
Yeah.
loopy because I've been doing shit all day.
That's always the that's always the go-to answer for a lot of this from any sort of parapsychologist is, well, that's just what the brain does. It's normal, it's natural, and it does explain a lot of this away. The easier explanations for stuff like, oh well, the bed was vibrating. It would depend on where they live, but if they live close enough to a road where it's like a highway or a train track or something like that, just trains going by can cause that vibration, even from quite a way off.
Yeah, there's
you might not
1,000.
hear the trains. Yeah.
Like there's 1,000 things it could be. Their air conditioner could have kicked on, and like the bed's like near one of the big vents, and it causes that. Honest to God, it could be nothing. It could literally just be like it's cold and one of them is shuddering. Al could just be squeaking one out and he's just too embarrassed to tell her. That's my first thought. The shit about
That would
like,
be
well,
amazing.
the sheets at the end of the bed are moving. Like, you can't tell. It's dark. If you think there's something spooky in your room, you're gonna see shit like that.
Yeah, that's a major component to any sort of excuse that an excuse. One of the biggest counters that a parapsychologist will always bring forward is psychosomatics and what you are gonna amp yourself up to, what you are gonna believe you see because you are in a certain headspace. Like if I told you, okay, this house that I live in is haunted, you are already going to be expecting something. Even as a parapsychologist or someone who is completely aware of the psychology, you are very much, the human brain is a master at tricking itself. You are already, like, even the slightest thing, you go, oh, maybe that's the ghost, maybe that's it. You're in a funeral home. I used to live in a very similar place like this. You tell someone that, they are automatically on edge. They're automatically gonna think, okay, every time there's something scary going on, I'm gonna say it's the ghost. I'm gonna think that immediately.
Yeah, you're just priming yourself for it.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. Someone else.
We were lying in bed. Carmen had already had fallen asleep. I felt this strange sensation coming over my body. It started at my feet and started climbing up through my body. Before I had a chance to
It started coming on his feet before it came all over his body.
Something was wrong.
I kept telling it, I'm not into that sort of thing, but like, it just didn't care.
And then I felt this stinging penetration in my anal area. And I was trying to scream, to cry out to Carmen to help me somehow. And I couldn't move.
Pass me some olive oil or something.
So,
while, I don't know how
like,
long.
if you pause for a second, immediately, have you ever experienced a bout of sleep paralysis?
I haven't. I've heard people talk about it pretty extensively, and like, yeah, like that's not unusual. A lot of the like stories that we kind of ascribe to sleep paralysis of like an incubus and stuff like that, which is this sort of reoccurring idea. This sort of reoccurring idea of something sinister holding us down, and there's like almost like a sexual proponent to it, but it does seem to be purely hallucinatory.
So, for everyone watching, this isn't, let's just assume there's people that who don't know. Sleep paralysis, I have personally experienced. It's one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. And essentially what it is when you are asleep and you wake up, your body is still, when you go to sleep, your body kind of paralyzes itself. It's a weird sort of process. If you've ever done lucid dreaming, you'll know about it. So you're in that state where your muscles won't react to anything, but your mind is awake, your eyes are alive, but you'll start seeing things because your brain is still sort of trapped within this idea of, oh, wow, it's sleepy time. So I remember when I had sleep paralysis, I was in my old flat, I was asleep, I woke up, I couldn't move, and my eyes were closed. I thought the sheets were coming off the bed, being pulled off of me quite fast. I couldn't move. I couldn't react to pull the sheets up. And I kept feeling, because my door was at the very end of my bed, I kept getting this overwhelming sensation. There was something tall watching over me from my door. And I couldn't, even trying to rationalize it now, I can't rationally say why I thought that. But that's exactly what I thought. Now I was able to turn around to myself, and because for the first day, I think I was like, oh my God, it was a ghost. And then I remembered about sleep paralysis, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, wait, no, that makes more sense, that it is just simply psychosomatic. I've just imagined this. A lot of people who claim this sort of stuff and go, oh, well, it was as I woke up, that's immediately what any parapsychologist worth his salt is immediately going to say. It is sleep paralysis. You will imagine things happening to you, and your brain will fool you into believing it is actually happening. it is not happening. It is perfect. You know, you're fine. But you will go through those sensations. It is very scary. Not to detract from this guy, because I imagine it was the scariest thing he's ever been through. And it feels like someone is physically holding you down, but it is not. Anything that they say about, you know, feeling like they're going to be raped or whatever, immediately everyone is going to say, well, it's sleep paralysis. That's very common within sleep paralysis. It doesn't necessarily, and, you know, one could go, oh, well, does that make him gay? I'm just imagining someone's going to bring that up. No, you know, the brain's a funny object at the best.
It had gone away. There was no more sensation. I woke Carmen up and I said, Carmen, I think I was just sodomized by this demon.
This happened to me as well, Sally. It was a tedious kind of pain that happened. It was horrible pain. It was so penetrating and so much pain. There was no
tedious
pleasure in it.
pain.
And when it would
Yeah,
take
yeah.
me,
That's a
sexually
weird.
assault to me,
That's
it
what I would
laughed.
describe
It
sex
was
as,
such
a
pleasure.
tedious pain.
It enjoyed what it was doing to me, and I was so terrified I couldn't move. It was the most crippling thing I've ever been through in my life, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
I'll try and perform better next time,
You
Dylan.
saw ghosts?
And I went into the living room with where my mom and cousin were, and I asked them
All
if
right,
Jenny just came.
Come on.
So,
Come on. Yeah, everyone's getting raped by ghosts. All right.
Sally, that would have been the first choice we would have had, but every time we did leave the house, it would follow us. I'd go to work, and the computer system would go down, or the phone system would go down.
Can I
Can
take this ghost to work? That sounds awesome. You know you get paid whether or not you actually do anything, right?
Also, I love her first thing is like, oh, well, the computer, like, even today, right, I mean, at that time, I suppose you could get away with a little bit of ignorance, but anyone who's worked IT for even 5 minutes knows that, like, a computer today will go down when you don't need it to. That's not a ghost, it's shitty PCs, and come on, this is like the 80s? Like, the fuck are you expecting?
Was there any medical evidence that either of you had been raped? Did you go to a doctor and get physically examined?
Why would we? I mean, we couldn't see it. How did we expect anyone else to believe us?
Well, because they don't. You know that the doctors, when they check you out, they're not looking for like the dude's dick, right? They're looking for signs of like bruising and stuff.
Yeah, that's also a weird cop-out to be like, well, why would we go? Like, that's not that crazy a question to be like, yeah, did you think to go, like, check? Like, did you think that one? She was almost offended.
I'm not gonna listen to some bullshit Jewish doctor tell me that I can't get raped by my ghost in the privacy of my own home, okay? This is America.
But you felt a stinging pain?
It wasn't like a normal rape, not person-to-person type.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what?
What do you know?
A normal rape.
What do you know, Al?
That's a very dangerous thing to go straight in with.
I wasn't. Look, you don't understand. I was super.
Carmen, there was one point where you say you actually were possessed by a demonic force, and you, Al, say you witnessed it. Can you tell us about it?
This was one of the most terrifying events that happened in the house. I've drawn some sketches, if I may. We had been...
I was possessed by this entity who took me to a sex shop and purchased a strap-on dildo. Al can tell you about it. He was like, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't fun.
Outside, just kidding around. The researchers were in the house, my husband, my niece, and upon going back to bed, I sat down and I was no longer in my room. I was in a dark room. I don't know if you can catch this on camera.
The power went out.
Yeah.
Ghost is here.
She closed her eyes.
She had a sleep mask on and she forgot.
I was in complete darkness. I couldn't feel the temperature of my skin. I couldn't hear myself speak. I couldn't see anything but blackness. I knew I was no longer in my room. The entity
She was faded and thinking she was Helen Keller.
At me, and when I began to pray the Our Father, he got
And
worse.
that was fucked.
And he said, there's no way you could possibly believe what you've been taught as a
Her
child.
husband puts her bag over her head.
It was called
Puts a paper
Ithra,
bag over her head
a
just so
desert
she can
road of
sleep.
hot tears, and I was taken down this road.
She's a shitty artist.
Souls, lost souls. I could actually feel the emotion, the anger, the hurt,
An actual
the
8th grader could do
desperation,
that.
the sadness. There were no positive emotions. They were all human, negative emotions. And they were palatable.
It sounds like as though she had a trip. Like,
I knew it. I felt such compassion for these souls, but I couldn't leave the road. I was warned against it. I was there for 8 hours.
he fell asleep. She fell the fuck to sleep and is like, oh, it was such an. That sounds like sleep.
And when I finally opened my eyes and I was off that path, I was so well rested and ready to start my day.
Research or anything saying, you know, trying to find out who exactly these spirits were?
Yes.
Yes.
We had some researchers come in on the night that I discovered that there were other entities in the house. I called some people called the Warrens. Someone at work had told me that she believed the things my children were telling me was true, and she asked me to go to Ed and Lorraine's museum with her. She gave me their number to call and make an appointment. I never did. I just kept the number in my wallet. That night I called it.
And did they help you?
They stayed with us for 9 weeks.
9 weeks?
9 weeks, every
9
night.
weeks?
They stayed in our house. They ate our food.
Right.
Used our internet.
Our toilet.
They ordered a lot of premium video content that the titles of which I don't feel comfortable repeating on stage, where I was reenacting my rape. That'll tell you something about that.
So, if you've watched any sort of ghost show, like, that's kind of interesting that it was that long. Like, usually ghost people spend, like, maybe, like, a few days, not weeks. That's interesting. Not to say it makes it any more realistic, but...
It was, you know, we'd been there for about a month, and Ed said he wanted to talk to me, and I thought maybe they had a breakthrough and they had found something, and then he said, you know, that I really needed to get a more complete sports package, or else this wasn't going to work out. So, I didn't know there was an ESPN 9.
They had 3 researchers that came in the house and stayed 9.5 weeks. They worked during the day. They did not accept any pay for what they did for us. And they experienced phenomena from the very first night they walked into our house.
You know definitely that it is a male spirit?
No, there is no gender in the spirit's world. There's, these were called incubus and succubus, but I'll let...
Okay, so there is gender, because you just denoted the 2 genders there are of ghosts.
Yeah.
So
the researchers tell you more about that later on.
Later, we're going to meet the Ghostbusters who helped Carmen and her family, but next, the neighbors.
Ed comes out, you're like, you can't say that. We've gotten into trouble for that before.
We found while investigating this case who say, gee, they don't believe a word of the Snedeker story. Don't go away.
I love, like, the same woman they keep bringing up to ask questions is asking some really good questions, and each time they kind of, like, make a point of shutting it straight the fuck down, don't they?
They try so hard to make this house look spooky. Look at this.
Oh, yeah, the good old, let's just invert the color palette. That works.
Said that, you were molested. Now, were you ever molested outside of your home? Did they follow you? Like you said that they would follow you if you would leave.
One night I ran down the street with Kelly, being sodomized the whole way.
That's impressive.
Yes. Good question.
God damn, those ghosts have got some fucking control.
You told them that.
The policeman almost shot my bedroom door when the door began to open by itself when he was in there.
And your question?
So, I can answer that one because we've watched a video on it. That's a very common one of the, oh, well, the door was opening and, you know, that means there's a ghost. There is a lot of things, especially inclines and improper door installation, which can cause that, which is made worse when you were talking about older buildings.
Yeah, for sure. Also, she said that the cop almost shot her door. An amazing amount of restraint our cops used to have. Today, that door would not exist.
Yeah.
But no, if they were molested in their beds, why didn't you just leave that next morning? You have children to worry about.
Exactly. Anyway.
Where would we go? That's always a very common one, isn't it?
Go to a motel. Go to the zoo for the day. Go down to the zoo for the day, see the animals, That would probably take your mind off of it for a bit.
Yeah, the ghost molestation would disappear for a day.
So far, we've heard about the music in the middle of the night, the voices out of nowhere, and some pretty serious accusations, including rape and sodomy by an evil spirit, whatever it is. While we were investigating this story, we came across some people who...
The way she says serious allegations, like they're gonna pull the ghost up on rape charges.
Serious doubts about the Snedekers story. In fact, they say the Snedekers are making the whole thing up. Meet Richard, Yvonne.
Right, I want to pause for a second. Let's take a room. Have you watched this whole clip?
No, I've not seen this before.
Okay, how much do we want to bet they get claps or boos? Was this like when they would do all that? I haven't watched Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and since I was literally a child.
This is the first time I've ever heard of it. I'm going to say they'll probably get light, considerate applause, oh, okay, you're the new guest, but I guarantee you before this is over, someone's gonna get booed.
Yeah, I'm reckoning they're gonna get a very polite start, but by the end of it, there's gonna be some mixed feelings from the crowd.
Richard, why don't you believe the Snedeker story?
Well, I think the most obvious reason for me was the inconsistencies in it. We were moving into the Southington area from another town, found the apartment. We liked the apartment. I mentioned it to some coworkers who work in that town and live in that town. And, of course, the whole haunted house story came out with them.
Now, you moved into their apartment after they left?
Correct, the same one they were living in.
Oh, okay.
When all this was supposedly happening.
My hole is still tight as a baby's belly button. So let me tell you something. Something else is going on in that thing.
I think I researched it with my wife. We talked to people, as a matter of fact, to close relatives. I don't think I'm lucky, though. My question, my response to this is, if the ghost followed you down the street, you were so concerned that the ghost was going to harm your relatives, your friends, then the house wasn't haunted. The ghosts were from you.
After you, that's right.
Because I have had...
That's fucked up to say to someone who was raped by a ghost, though. A little bit. If you, that's crazy.
He is right, though, that so a demonologist from my own... I'm not too big on demonologists because it's not really a big thing out here. It's more an American thing, this whole kit and caboodle. Most would absolutely say, if it is following you out of the house to the point that you won't go to anyone else because you're scared of that, which is what they said, it is not bound to the house, it's bound to you. So those things wouldn't have stopped because you moved. But apparently, yes, it did, and no one else has experienced that since you left, which would suggest it followed you.
See, it sounds
which
like
is what you're saying.
It sounds like you guys were tracking mud through places, but you were, instead of mud, it was rape ghosts, and I think you tracked a rape ghost into my house, and I don't appreciate it.
Rape ghosts?
Had nothing. I have not heard a creaking board. I have not heard...
Oh damn, they're clapping. They're on his side. I didn't expect that. I think it's because a lot of this audience is black. I think if they were all middle-aged white women, there would have been boos. But I think there's a couple of black people in there who were you see this white lady come up and talk about being sodomized by a ghost, and you're sitting there this is bullshit. Come on now. You're being crazy.
Yeah, it's also the period. I mean, this is 80s, maybe very early 90s. This wasn't as sensationalized. It wasn't until the 2000s, the 2003 to 2010s, that ghosts and ghost hunting was very sensationalized.
Yeah, this sort of era. This is even before Talk TV was sensationalized, because Jerry Springer in the 90s is kind of where that kicked off.
Yeah.
There were obviously examples before that, but everything before, they kind of redid Jerry Springer is a lot more pedestrian, I suppose.
One thing,
years.
obviously the exorcism worked then. You're very lucky.
There was no exorcism.
I don't think there was an exorcism.
Here's the
Dig down 12 inches behind every corner of the house. 12 inches, there is an exorcism medal. And there...
What?
I know what she's saying. There's no such thing as an exorcism medal. So having watched, there is one episode of Ghost Adventures where we see a Roman Catholic perform an exorcism, and what he does is he buries silver crucifixes in four corners of the property, which is one method of keeping these kind of demons out, apparently. I imagine that's what she's trying to say, and she's decided to say metal, which doesn't really add up. I also imagine this is something where she's read about it, and that's why she's... Like, if I'm gonna say she's lying, she has read about this process and thinks it's a medal rather than, oh yeah, you know, it's something we get rid of. She's talking shit, though, I think.
You people say you didn't know that it was a funeral home. The picture that was supplied by whoever that was taken last year, the sign that says funeral home, is still on the front of the house. If they show the picture.
She was showed the top apartment.
Cover up.
They were
by signs
remodeling
on the front door.
They got
pictures.
the bottom floor.
They got pictures of you in the newspaper, which they also showed. Right next to you, right behind you.
It's right there.
If you look right behind you on the picture,
it's covered up with plywood. It's covered
It was
up.
not. It was not covered up until this whole thing.
You did not live there when I did. You do not know.
So, hold on. They're claiming the sign telling it as a funeral home was covered up. Wouldn't that be, like, false? Like, wouldn't that be illegal? Because there'd be some kind of, like, false advertising or something, right? Like, you have to say this shit on the paperwork before you hand it over, don't you?
I think it depends. One, a lot of that stuff is semi-new. Like, a lot of older, like, you know, it was brought into legislation like the 2000s and stuff, where, like, if someone died in a place or if the house was said to be haunted, you had to tell the prospective tenants because it might affect stuff. So you may not have always had to do that, but also, like, covering up the sign that said it was a funeral home. If it's not a funeral home, it's fine, right? Because it used to be a funeral home, but it's an apartment or a set of apartments now. So yeah, of course you would take it down or change it or something. But it's really fascinating that they have 3 different people, all who seem to have lived in this place after them, and they're all like, yeah, you're just talking shit. None of this is true.
That is really funny, yes.
Because none of this was brought up.
Why did this...
Nothing was ever said. Nothing was ever said until you got behind in your rent, and that's when it started. No.
Oh, shit.
Oh! Fucking shots fired.
Listen here, sweet cheeks, okay? I've given it up when I was short on rent, all right? But I wasn't raped, and I wasn't by a ghost. It was by Carmichael, and he paid handsomely. Okay, so read them and weep, sweetheart.
Oh, you know what happened? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. You guys were both.
Oh, you can tell this woman's been, like, rehearsing this in her head for, like, years.
Yeah, but that's a fucking nice little comeback, I'll give it that.
God damn.
Well,
You can kind of say that about anything at any point, and you'll get a good pop-off, right? Like, the next time you're in an argument with someone, just throw it out at them that, like, they're only saying that because they're behind on rent.
The other thing is I was wondering if you, 1, if you have a book out, and 2, if you were either behind in your mortgage or your rent. Because that could be cause for the dramatization.
No.
Or that
No, that's not true.
No, we were not behind in our
I love how
rent.
people do think that at this time in history that, oh yeah, you know, you're coming up with this fantastical ghost story. Were you behind on your rent?
So that's part of it, is I think today, the notion of, oh, we were just doing it for publicity, that's a cliche. And so people are like, well, they didn't do that because that's been done too many times. That's too obvious, right? They look at it like it's a piece of fiction, right? Like, well, there's no way this guy's the killer. It's too obvious. But, like, no, it's, yeah, right? Like, anything you can do to make some money, you, like, if the opportunity presents itself, you'll fucking go for it.
If the landlord said there was a problem in the house, there was a lady living upstairs in the house the whole time this was going on. There was an apartment upstairs. This lady got disgusted. She got moved out because she was disgusted with all the publicity that was going on.
What she
say,
she experienced.
She
come to me
experienced
and
nothing.
talked to me. Yes, she did. You were not there. You
I've been in that place.
She was there.
The researchers.
Yes.
And she allowed the priest in.
So why did she tell the TV people that nothing happened? Why did she tell us that nothing happened? Why did she tell the newspaper that nothing
She
happened?
told me she had a reputation.
She worked for the owner? Is that what she said?
It seems like... Go back a little bit, because that's what I was wondering what was just said.
Us and the researchers.
Yes.
And she allowed the priest in.
So why did she tell the TV people that nothing happened? Why did she tell us that nothing happened? Why did she tell the newspaper that nothing
She
happened?
told me she had.
Yeah, she works for the owner.
Ah, okay. It's always a conspiracy.
Another time, on another occasion, she was sitting talking to Carmen. I believe it was in her dining room. I'm not 100% sure. It's the dining room or the kitchen. And she says while she was sitting talking to her, she felt something bite her or sting her on her backside or the thigh of her leg. And it was extremely painful. When she looked down, there was absolutely
Sorry, but
nothing
those
there.
things could be bugs, right? That's a very... Oh, well, I felt something bite me. Well,
I'll
you
tell
sure it
I
wasn't
was
just a bug?
uncomfortable with
Like,
things
what?
I saw.
Yeah.
I did hear.
And the smell thing, again, is a very...
One of the church.
That's dangerous territory, because it's like, well, there's 1,000,001 reasons why that could have happened, right?
Yeah, man. Like, something's shit in your walls. Sorry.
It's something shit in your walls.
It just happens sometimes, bud. Sorry. You live in like a wooded area, or you live in like the suburbs. The animals don't know. They hide out in places.
Yeah.
I'm also a neighbor, and Joan and her husband were to our next door neighbor's house for a pool party when we were there. And when Joan went into the house to tend her babies, her husband said that there had been some funny things going on and that he was concerned for his wife. Well, this was in July. We had been hearing odd noises about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I decided to put a journal next to the bed and write down what went on.
Motherfuckers used to be nosy, dude. What are you doing? You got a fucking... What is this rear window shit she's up to? I'm gonna journal whenever I hear old Al getting the thump.
And I discovered that there were usually things going on in the neighborhood that explained the things they put in the newspaper.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, shit!
There were chains dragged.
So you're saying that
when
what we saw
heavier
was
trucks
trucks
went down the road, around that time some repairs had been done in the road and heavy trucks would come down, and when they'd hit this repair in the road, it would rattle all the houses around us.
Fucking cooled it, didn't we?
God damn. Yeah, it was a big ass truck, and it would go through, and it would just rattle everything. It just sort of happens. Whatever.
Yeah. She is pissed.
Vibration.
But what we...
I live in a cul-de-sac, so that doesn't happen very often, because, like, you can't really, like, speed through it. But, I do also actually live by train tracks. So,
yeah.
You would be amazed how quickly you just sort of tune it out. Because the trains run at, like, 2, 3 in the morning, and I'm, like, you know, sometimes when we're fucking around on Discord, you guys will hear it in the background, and I've just tuned it out. You'd be amazed how quickly you just sort of give it, like, stop paying attention.
Yeah, I used to live next to one as well. The road I used to live on literally was, I mean, it was I imagine yours is an industrial one, whereas ours is used for a public.
Yeah.
So I know that's a little bit different, but you would, yeah, you do. You, like, the first few times you're, like, living there, yeah, you absolutely do notice it, and you're like, God damn. But after a while, you just stop, like, it doesn't even come through in your mind.
You both launched an investigation into the house, and you discovered a very shocking thing that actually happened in the funeral parlor involving the bodies. What happened?
Well, we feel through our investigation that necrophilia, or abuse of corpses, had occurred in that home. Not necessarily by the undertaker, it could be anybody that went in there. Now, this case is not as isolated as these three people would have us think. We have over 70 cases very similar to the Snedekers. And remember that the church...
Okay, he means that they have over 70 cases where someone heard something in their house at night. That's
Yeah.
what he means.
I was a bit confused for a second there. Also, so God, I'm trying to remember. Oh, fuck, I just forgot what he just said. But what he is saying sounds really fucking weird anyway, just to begin with. Like, necrophilia straight out the gate is one of those things. I would be very curious if you were to look up the house properly now. Like, back then, you could say shit like that because who the fuck's gonna call you out on it, right? Like, who's gonna be able to call you out on that? Nobody had the internet. But I imagine that's bullshit. Like, there's something in the back of my mind going, that's a load of shit, isn't it?
How about a name? Just one name.
Father
A
A is a name I give you. I don't have to give
a
you
name.
Father A.
See, you trying to call him an asshole? Is that what he was doing there?
It's like, that's the other bit, right? When you get people like this and they're kind of confronted, they'll immediately start being a fucking child about it. Like, oh yeah, you just need Father A. It's like, dude, just fucking tell them. Like, you don't help yourself in any way.
Full name.
I can prove. These are secret things. We are Catholic, and we
secret, you're sitting here talking about being raped and sodomized by some sort of entity, but you won't give a name.
I'm telling you what happened to me. I'm not telling you. You gotta believe me.
It was all backed up. See, that's the problem. This is actually fascinating. Because when you get down to it, every argument is kind of fundamentally the same. This is the same thing that happens when you get into, like, you know, pissy matches with people on the internet, right? They're just sort of hoping that if they keep saying it's been verified or backed up or something, you'll just accept that it has been, and they never have to actually prove it. The next time you get into it with someone on the internet about anything, even slightly, like, at all, pay attention and see if they're like, no, it's true, it's been verified. Ask them where, because they don't have it. They're not reading the fucking news or a trusted source. Their verification is, well, if it wasn't verified, TikTok would have taken it down, right? No, they don't give a fuck. They're in China.
So I've had someone do this to me when it was these two girls who were into the idea of the moon landings didn't exist and shit like that. And I said to them, okay, well, you know, the reason I think that they are is because Russia confirmed it. You know, why would the enemy confirm something like that, blah, blah, blah. But they literally sat there and were like, oh, well, you know, it's all over the internet, right? You can Google it. And that's, whenever you get those people, they will. That's another thing they'll do is like, oh, well, just go and Google it. Like, I'm not going to find you a source. You find the source. And it's like, well, no, you brought the argument to my door. Like, you've got to be the one to back it up. I'm not doing your research for you. That's always crazy.
Were you in the house?
No, I've been standing. I lived across the street.
In the house.
Were you in the house?
I do know that when they moved into the house, there was no sign that said Hallahan Funeral Home. The sign exists. It is, you know, to the right side of the door, but it was covered with plywood for years now. It's been covered up ever since the Hallahans moved out. It does not say Hallahan's Funeral Home on it anymore. And people moved into the home after the Snedeker.
But you can see it, like that black blob to the right of the door. Like, that does seem like where it would be.
Funeral home on it anymore. And people moved into the home after the Snedekers left, and left very quickly after they did, before they moved in.
Okay, so there was an interim family.
It would qualify if they left because there was just a bunch of publicity, or even just that, like, you don't want to live in a funeral home because it's kind of weird. It does
also, like, they said it was in a set of apartments, right?
Yeah.
So that's not uncommon for people to buy or get an apartment, right? And then just only be there for like a couple of years and then bugger off onto a
or
new
even
one.
like a couple, like even a couple of months, depending on where it is. Maybe they're like in the process of buying a home and they need somewhere to stay, or they're staying here for a little while for work, or like depending on where this happened, which I think it was like what, Connecticut or something. You know, like if there's like a gig economy or something nearby, that makes total sense. It's not necessarily anything. Plus, you have to imagine, you know, how much publicity is people like still coming around and bothering the people in this house about ghosts and stuff. How many of them are just like, I don't want to deal with this, I'm leaving.
Yeah, 100%.
And people moved into the home after the Snedekers left, and left very quickly after they did, before they moved in.
Okay, so there was an interim family that you think was
Hold on,
disturbed.
they moved in after they left and were leaving quickly before they moved in. Is that what she said, or am I just having a stroke?
I think she might have misspoke in certain ways, but her point is like there were people who did move in and then left very quickly.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a question.
Jeff's another neighbor.
As you know,
That man looks exactly like what a Jeff from Connecticut on a talk show about haunted rapes would look like.
had cancer and he was taking many drugs.
Yes.
Did he or did he not tell you that he was also taking other illegal substances? But how
I
do you
think
not?
that these are all very contributing factors to why the phenomena was as intense as it was in that particular home.
Maybe
but realize
the
that
ghost didn't like the use of drugs. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Drugs heighten the sensitivity. We know.
Drugs heighten the sensitivity.
Yeah, she literally was saying that the ghost didn't like drugs. This is always such a cop-out, right? Where you're like, well, maybe you weren't paying much attention because you were in a stressful time in your life. And they always go, well, stress actually causes ghost activity to go upwards because they feed off of it, right? Everything that might compromise your objectivity also happens to cause ghosts. That's crazy, right? It's crazy that the ghosts are not attracted to, like, being straight-laced, right? It's crazy that if your house is, like, well-maintained, the ghosts don't like that.
Yeah, that's always a bit of a problem with all of this, is that it is a common thing to say that stress, and the thing with ghost stuff is, yeah, stress, you know, bad things, which makes sense, right? That a demon would go for negativity. But we've also got to remember that failing mental health increases your chances of things like, you know, episodes, mental breaks, hallucinations, stuff like that. Because it all goes hand in hand. And it is really funny that the second someone mentions, oh yeah, your son was on illegal, which was marijuana. It was marijuana, right? We can all, we're old enough now. It was marijuana, right? Oh, he was on illegal stuff. The old Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And yeah, one could go, yeah, you know, that. I mean, we fucked with Aquanas enough when he's high. It's very easy for you to get subject yourself into this shit because you're a bit high.
What happened to you?
We were there for 9.5 weeks trying to help Carmen and Snedeker. When we go in on these cases, we have to document...
Who's we?
The researchers. I work with Ed and Lorraine, doing their investigation.
Well, yeah, I wonder why we shouldn't listen to you, buddy. You think maybe you might have an invested interest in this fabrication?
I'm one of the persons that was in there for the 9.5 weeks. I'm amazed at hearing all these people that weren't even in the home. You weren't there. You weren't witness to it. A neighbor sitting here.
I mean, I wasn't there when Lincoln got shot.
Now you want us to turn around and give you the name of the priest. He prefers to stay anonymous.
They said was there.
No,
he
you
said
don't.
he was not there.
Bullshit. Well, hold on. A priest prefers to stay anonymous. That's a... Yeah, because it's horse shit, right?
Yeah, I mean,
what priest wouldn't... Because they don't... Roman Catholics, when they do these exorcisms, anyone who does an exorcism, they charge you. So, of course, and if it's a Catholic priest, that's part of their profession, is to do this. So, why the fuck would you want to keep yourself under the radar? You'd want to go, no, I did it. Like, yeah, this happened. Like, you'd immediately want to tell it, because you'd want to say, like, yeah, you know, I did this good thing.
Yeah,
Shut the
or
fuck up.
it's more likely, you know, a shyster or a huckster that they hired and he doesn't want it to get back to him. Because if you start plugging holes, there's really only, like, the Vatican has, like, a list of approved exorcists, but it's extraordinarily short. And I don't know if they still have one anymore. I think that might have been something they did away with.
I'd like to know why you think that they would fabricate something so absurd to get money when there's other ways of getting money. And I also don't think it's right that you demean their son for doing drugs. There are a lot of kids who have problems, and it doesn't happen just in people's houses who supposedly have problems.
Right answer.
Well, the reason they'll get money is because it's absurd.
Yeah.
That's why they would do it that way. If it were a normal thing, it wouldn't be notable.
The point
I didn't expect this. The Warrens are kind of the least interesting part of this.
Yeah, they really are. It's because they don't have to do too much, right? They're kind of... It's the family which are the ones who are defending themselves and feel like a personal attack on this. The Warrens don't care.
I've not met a house that I thought was haunted. I think the Warrens have never met a house that they didn't think was haunted.
I think that you are mistaken.
You can see, like, this is what the interview in the movie was based on.
Yeah.
Very clearly.
I was on the show with this man once before.
It's my turn.
You made a statement.
I've heard that you were a loudmouth who shouted people down. Just give me my chance to talk.
I won't give you a chance.
You did that to me last show we were on.
A bunch of lies.
Joe,
We
I'll
have
give
the
you your
evidence,
chance.
We have the proof.
You're a loudmouth, Warren, and
No,
we
you're
all
the
know it. But if you'll just let me finish.
When you're concerned, I'm a loudmouth.
Go ahead, Joe.
Try to show a little
Joe,
class.
I
You're
don't
on
have a
national
lot of
TV.
time.
No, I'm not going to
Just-
give class to somebody who's sitting here.
You'll have
nothing but lying.
Ed, let Joe just explain.
Be careful who you
point by
call a
point.
liar.
Well, what
Go
would you
ahead.
do about it?
Guys, Joe, point by point.
Yes, one thing that the houses that sincere people report that they think are haunted usually follow certain patterns. This is a hodgepodge of the sort of ghost tale, poltergeist, part demon, part this, part that.
Were you there?
That is...
Pattern with the amateur.
So, pause a second. I didn't think about this. That is also true that hauntings generally take a very specific pattern, right? We're talking about one which is apparently an incubus, succubus, but also, like, does all this other weird shit that's not generally reported. The closest one I can think of here, which is well known, which sounds similar, is the ancient Ram Inn, which is one of the oldest buildings in England. That's very haunted, but they attribute that to multiple ghosts on the property rather than just the one, right? And that's the problem here, is this is being attributed to a single ghost, and it is doing literally everything that you'd expect from a movie and a storybook, rather than, oh yeah, you know, it is following a very specific pattern, which is what shoots these people straight in the foot.
Amityville Horror, a case that the Warrens thought was genuine. It turned out to be a blatant
Nobody
hoax
ever proved that.
concocted over several bottles of wine.
Can
The
you
evidence.
prove it?
Yes, I
No,
can
you
prove
can't.
it. Yes,
You
I
cannot
can.
prove
It's
it.
been proven.
No, it has never been
The evidence
proven.
is very clear in the case of the Amityville Horror.
No,
the whole
no way.
packaging of this story. The book says it's for Halloween release. The book was written by a professional fiction writer who writes horror stories.
Joe,
This
does the
whole
church-
packaging is a
does the-
prop.
Joe, does the church admit to exorcism?
He's an atheist. How would he know?
According to a newspaper article that I have, the Bridgeport newspaper, the diocese refuses to confirm that they had any exorcism there.
It wasn't
if there
done by
was,
the
if there
Sally,
was
I
an
have
Ah, there it is. Well, yeah, you slip
Yeah.
me $30, I'll do an exorcism.
exorcism, I
of an
don't understand
exorcism
why
from a
there is
priest.
any reason why they can't
wasn't
come out
done
and
for
say so.
Bridgeport.
We've
I
had
don't understand
priests
the
on
need
the
for
show when
secrecy.
we've talked about exorcism.
If I
Take a
can
break.
prove
We'll be
that
right
there
back.
wasn't exorcism,
That was a short segment.
That was very short.
I thought he was flipping him with a bird at first.
That would have been really funny.
But the sheer fact that this family in their
Also, sorry to pause like here. He does bring up something very interesting in that they're doing a segment, they're releasing their book around Halloween.
Yeah,
right?
I caught that and I had food in my mouth. But yeah, like that's the sort of thing where it's like if you hire a fiction writer who does horror stories, that's kind of something, but a lot of the time writers take whatever jobs they can get, right? But like releasing it at Halloween, that's a level of intention that's not, you know. You release it a month later, right? Release it at, Thanksgiving or some shit, like do that, release it in the summer, release it in March. Literally October is the only month you can't release it.
Yeah, because you're immediately just gonna make it sound like fiction, and as soon as he brings that up, you realize there wasn't any counter to that at all.
No,
they
yeah.
just sort of went, and it's like, yeah. Because right, as you said, a fiction writer, I would be like, okay, you get, like, why wouldn't you get someone who is a non-fiction writer.
Yeah.
Who,
But
I
I
also
think
understand that
I
it
have
makes
to
sense.
assume,
Yeah.
not knowing anything about the book, I would say chances are they got up to a publishing house or someone, and they set them up with a writer, and they decided, hey, we'll have the horror guy do it because it's kind of a spooky horror thing. And you know what? If I was the family, I would say we didn't get to choose when the book came out. The publisher does. They gave us a writer to work with who was a professional, but we didn't get to choose it, but that's on their end because they're a business. We are trying to tell our story. That would be the way to do it. They don't know that because they're stupid.
Yes.
Minds believe that this happened has to be overwhelming, and my heart goes out to you, whether it happened or not.
Thank you very much. Why would your heart go out to them if they're fucking lying? What?
Well, I really feel like the only thing missing from your description of your first trip into the house is...
What is this lady's story? What's going on here? Hold on.
Well, I really feel like the only thing...
She got a busted up hand. She's wearing like an Elvira cloak. She's got a backwards baseball cap. What is this about?
Missing from your...
I think her other hand is kind of weird too. Is this a costume or is this lady just got the scary movie hands?
You know what it is? She's an extra for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Description of your first trip into the house.
I legitimately can't tell. I don't want to put someone down for like being disfigured, right? Like, that alone is not worthy of ridicule. But like the quality is so low, I can't tell if this is what this person actually looks like or if it's a costume thing. Because the hand...
Well, I really feel like the only thing missing from your description...
It kind of looks like a plastic glove, doesn't it? A little bit.
I think the one on the left is bandaged up because when you get closer, it looks.
Yeah,
but
no. But like the one on the right.
Yeah, it looks kind of fucked up. So maybe she's just been in a recent accident or something.
Maybe, but like look at the light on it.
Well, I really feel like the only thing missing from your description...
You see that? It's got like a slimy quality. So I wonder if it's like a plastic thing and she did this as a joke. And it, like they're not going to draw attention to it for obvious reasons, but... What is this about? Can we find this person?
Of your first trip into the house is a corpse. I mean, blood on the walls and wax and makeup. And you also sound like you're reading a script. I'm not saying spirits and ghosts don't exist, but you sound so rehearsed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Next.
Do you feel
At this point, right, I'm sorry, but at this point, they've probably been through a lot of interviews. You would sound rehearsed at this point.
Yeah,
even if it was like a real story.
Like you would want to sound rehearsed. You would not want to trip over yourself. That being said, the whole thing of like, yeah, we were walking through the house for the first time and there was blood all over the wall. Like, yeah, she's right. That's fucking weird. That's like a horror movie thing.
Yeah.
I think that scene happens in Sinister, but it's not blood on the walls. It's that the kids are allowed to draw on the walls. And they're drawing fucked up stuff all over the walls.
Oh, yeah, King.
You've been talking about two different kinds of ghosts coming in. Are they either male or female, or is it always a male that's in your home?
No, ghosts have no gender, I don't think. I'm not sure, but I don't...
No, pause. So I know what this woman's saying, and it's exactly what I said earlier. An incubus and a succubus are gender specific. A succubus obviously is female, incubus is male. That is the implication immediately when you say that. When you say it is an incubus or a succubus, you are automatically making that implication.
I know this is... I know
Yeah.
this is kind of a common law sort of interpretation, but generally speaking, ghosts are also agreed to be people, like former people. So they would still have genders, I guess. Unless she's like super progressive for the era. Maybe she thinks that like once you're freed of your physical body, then you technically don't have it, right?
So the only ones that don't can be certain not certain kinds of demons. Demons as a whole usually don't have a specific gender. Elemental ghosts, quote unquote, don't. And I'm trying now to think. There's another one. Like poltergeists, a lot of the time don't necessarily put forward a gender because they are essentially just rambunctious little devils. So she is somewhat correct. There are some lines of thought which say that very specific kinds of ghosts don't. But in her description, yes, they would. And because she's already tripping herself up by using the terminology of incubus and succubus by saying, I am getting penetrated would imply the presence of a penis, so therefore, yeah, it's a dude.
The ghost has hands.
The ghost has a strap on, you know?
Could you imagine if she's like a super bigot about gender, but it wraps around to being weirdly progressive? So she's like, well, your gender is determined by your chromosomes, and they don't have those anymore, so they don't have genders anymore, dummy. In Stephen King's The Dark Tower, he encounters a succubus, and much later in the series, he encounters it again, but it's become an incubus, so it shifts from one to the other.
Yeah.
So they could be doing something like that, right?
I guess that is also the other problem with these things is because there isn't really... there is a certain story I remember reading. No, sorry. I was watching, where they were in Norway doing some ghost adventure stuff, and they asked the locals, like, about the ghosts, like, trying to get information. And literally, what they said was, there's no such thing. We don't have ghost stories here. Ghost stories are, like, a Western idea, right? And that's half the problem with all this sort of shit is, like, in Japan, if you were to say, is this a poltergeist? They go, no, it's like this one kind of oni, right?
Right. You go to China, it's something else. You go to South America, it's a different type of thing, right? Yeah.
Yes. So there is always this problem of when you try and bring forward a specific meaning for what a ghost is, there is always going to be multiple lines of thought for those. So in England, I think when you say they are succubus or incubus, they are a rigid one size thing. That is it. They're not always, they are either female or male, and that is it. There is some in America when this is a lot more common. The demonology thing is a lot more common in America, weirdly enough. They will say it will change depending on who they're going for. So that is always the problem with this stuff, is there is no real, it's not like, a categorized thing. It changes from person to person, which makes any story really malleable. And it can just change from person to person as they want it to fit into their story. What these people are saying has been coached by the other two, the ghost hunter people.
Yeah.
And you can tell that because their answers are incredibly vague and not like someone who usually has gone through a ghost thing and is being sincere they will have very specific points. They will be able to point to specific behaviors, and they'll already have an idea of what the ghost is. And these people are describing a lot of different things that succubus wouldn't do. And incubus doesn't move stuff. It doesn't vibrate stuff. It doesn't fuck with people outside of fucking them, right? That is their only one thing. And that's why this falls apart. That's why people were pointed out, you're talking about like 20 different kinds of ghost all at once.
Yeah. To kind of bring it back a little bit to the notion that like culture kind of shapes how we view ghosts. You don't even have to necessarily go into ghost or even different cultures, because time periods do it too. Because you know, you go back 40 years or 50 years or 70 years at this point, you know, back in like fucking the early 20th century, and you have sleep paralysis, it's a demon. You go into the 80s and 90s and you have sleep paralysis, it's alien abduction. It's all the same basic idea, which is this kind of obscure glitch in human biology that people kind of experience subjectively, but feels completely real. And people are very, very wary to be told that there's anything wrong with them at all. Even if it's something like, well, this is a universal thing that everyone kind of experiences. Like, you're not crazy for this, but you did hallucinate, basically. Which people do a lot. Like, even if you're in complete tip-top shape, which very few of us are, like, if you're a little dehydrated, you can have small, minor hallucinations of just, like, you feel like you brush up against something, nothing's there. oh, well, I felt it. It has to be real. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's your brain's not processing right because it doesn't have, all the calcium it needs, or you aren't taking in enough potassium.
That's very much, like I said, it's a lot of this is an automatic thing parapsychologists jump to is the psychology behind it. That's why it's parapsychology. And a lot of it is very easily written off as out the corner stuff, like shadow figures. I can guarantee every single person who's listening, and even yourself, can think of multiple occasions, like even you said earlier, like you think you see something out the corner of your eye. I do it all the time. I'm in my apartment, it's locked down, no one's in here, but I'll be sat at my computer and my door is to my right, which leads into my hallway. And out the corner of my eye, I think I see someone walking, like, through the door, and I quickly check. It's not just a hallucination, it's a bit of a survival thing, where you are trying to keep alert of your surroundings, so your body kind of plays tricks on you.
Your periphery is almost fabricating stuff to keep you from getting tunnel vision.
Yeah, the other one, very common one, in fact, which I remember, is when you were trying to sleep. I remember this when I was trying to lucid dream, because one of the first steps I read was you lie down in bed, you kind of stay still, but you keep your eyes open, or you keep your eyes closed, but you do everything to keep yourself mentally awake. And during that period of you trying to get sleep, you'll start to itch and scratch and stuff, or you'll feel things across your body. That is your body trying to check if you are awake, right? Because that's what your body is doing. At that point, it's not just your brain going, okay, I'm off now, let's go to sleep. It's your body physically checking, okay, am I asleep? Am I rested? Am I safe? So you will have those sensations like goosebumps, things crawling across your skin, and it's just so you'll sit there and you'll scratch if you're awake, but if you're too tired, you just won't bother, right? So your body's going, okay, I can shut down now.
Yeah.
A lot of these things can be attributed to ghosts, like, oh, well, my arm felt cold or really warm then, but there's multiple explanations for that even. And that's half the problem is, like you said, and, to bring it back around, is that a lot of this can just be very simply explained as, well, it's just your body. It's just your brain doing these things because it's natural to the brain to do these things, or it's just checking you're awake or checking you're asleep, or just checking your surroundings, or even the smallest change in temperature. Even something like 4 degrees can feel massive to your body. Like even a couple of degrees,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Our audience does not believe. Thanks to my guests, and whatever you believe about the story, the book is worth picking up. It's called In a Dark Place, The Story of a True Haunting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, like,
It's the story of a true...
look at this. Come on.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, if I will give them, I'll give them a little bit of leeway on that one. If you want a book to sell, you got to make it jump off the fucking shelf, right? And that is probably the easiest way to do that.
Why do they have them sit in a bed on stage?
That was really funny.
Yeah.
It's...
Goddamn, that neighbor lady documenting everything is the epitome of noisy suburbanite.
It is. That is weird. I will admit that much. It is always a bit weird when you hear someone doing that, but it's also because of reasons like this. Whenever you've, like, anytime there's a noisy neighbor, there is always that one person. There's always that one person on the road who is more than happy to sit there and, go all helter-skelter for trying to find out, like, what's going on or trying to be weird about it.
All right, well, here we go. That was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I found it informative and fun. I found it a fun little side thing. Hopefully more videos in the future. I'm hoping with my new microphone, I've streamlined the editing process a little bit, so they'll be easier to pump out. And if you have any interesting videos, or if you just want to hang out, there's a link to my Twitter. There's a link to my Discord in the description. Come hang out. We mostly just watch shit and play video games. Or if you have something that you think you'd like to see me react to or talk about or goof on, you can DM it to me somewhere probably and I'll find it out.